Hello, and welcome to Seriously Conversations About Culture, the podcast where myself and a few of my friends get together and discuss nerdy things. Just a reminder, if you like what you're listening to, please subscribe to Seriously Pointless Conversations YouTube channel, or you can find us on your favorite podcasting apps. Thank you for your support. Without you, none of this would be possible. Thanks for coming by. Now let's get into the episode. Hi, and welcome to Seriously Pointless Conversations About Culture. Your seriously pointless conversation about all the nerd and geek information you could possibly want. That's probably from a decade ago. At least. Today, I'm again joined by Kelly and James. How you guys doing?
Great.
It's been a good day.
And it has. If you guys don't know, it sounds familiar. This is our second episode for the day. I'm just going to break some of the magic there.
I'm pleased to announce the horrible rain has stopped.
Yeah.
And consequently, our spirits are lifting.
It's slowly but surely, but now it's dark outside. And I'm a
dinner was good.
Yeah, dinner was very tasty. We had tacos, if anybody cares at all. And yeah, I'm pretty sure my kid is going to shit his britches later. So, the amount of beans he hates. We shall see. So, anyways, guys, so like we were saying earlier, we were going to be going over the Legend of Zelda, and like I said, we're not going to do what we did last time, where we kind of go over round robin about the games we're playing, because obviously it's the same day, nothing has changed. But if you guys are interested, listen to the last episode, see what we're playing, and if you guys are interested in sharing us what you're playing, send us an email, post us on Facebook, whatever social media you can, and we'll try and get back in touch with you. And like I said, we're going to try and just enjoy all things gaming, and again, anything nerdy with you guys for that matter. But anyways, today we're going to be going over Legend of Zelda, and we're going to start off by everybody's first encounters with Zelda. You want to go first, Kelly?
Well, with this game in particular?
Yeah, so we're going to do, just to kind of clarify a little bit, we're going to do the very first Legend of Zelda game. We're not going over the franchise yet. I know you're sad, James, but I don't have 8 hours to dedicate to an entire podcast.
I don't either, so yes. This is okay.
This is acceptable. So this is going to be the 80s, the early, late 80s? No. I'm trying to remember when it was actually came out, and that's bad. I should know this by now. Sorry, mid 80s. So I knew it was in the 80s. Nintendo released game, Legend of Zelda. So that's what we're going to go over today, and then maybe, hopefully, in future episodes, we'll go over some of the actual franchise, or at least bits and pieces of it here and there.
We gotta do Link to the Past at least.
We will. That is, but I figured if we're going to do Link to the Past, we need to hit the grandfather of games.
As long as we skip Zelda 2, because the less said about that, the better.
We're gonna have there's gonna be at least half a page of notes in there. We're gonna go over, and I'm gonna make you talk about the side-scrolling Zelda game.
Side-scrolling Zelda game.
It's
can't make me
awful, to say the least. But anyways, I sidetracked Kelly. So when was your first experience with any Zelda property? Let's leave it open for that.
Okay, any Zelda would probably be on Game Boy Color, but I think I did play this game. I just didn't know it was Zelda. I think my aunt had a copy of that, and I played it once on her.
There you go.
Her little NES.
That's cool. That's. See, I don't even remember.
I remember the shooty guys that shoot the balls.
Like the octopus.
The octopus looking things.
Octoroks,
yeah.
yes.
Octoroks. That's what they were called. Yeah. I never knew what they were called. I just remember them being extremely annoying because you try to shield them, and they just if you didn't have the shield, you just die.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, but no, I know I hit, the first time I ever encountered Zelda was with you guys when we did Link to the Past, because like so many of my experiences, you guys indoctrinated me early on, which is great.
One of us.
One of us, that's right. And there was a blood sacrifice and the whole thing. So anyways, but we definitely came over, and I was watching, I think it was Chris Sire's house, or was it I think it was Chris Sire's house that we actually had it.
I think it was, yeah. I know I had a copy too. I know Chris Sire had he had the original one. He had the actual golden cartridge of the original Legend of Zelda.
Which we'll go over that here in a little bit. But that was just going over there and watching him play. I remember that was just fun. I don't know if people do that nowadays. I know they do it on Twitch and stuff, but I vividly remember going over to your guys' houses and just sitting there watching you guys play first single player games. And my mom was
we would pass the controller around. I mean, it was...
Yeah, but I mean, there'd be like 30-minute stretches. I would sit there and watch you guys, and vice versa. We'd watch each other. And I don't know if anybody does that anymore, but that was just...
I guess Twitch would be the closest thing
that
most people do.
Yeah, I mean, it's close as... You're not going over to somebody's house or like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm assuming similar origin story for that?
Yes, pretty much. I know we got I think Link to the Past was the first one I played for the Super NES. And yeah, I definitely encountered... the original game of Chris's
Because the SNES was your first console your dad got you, right?
Yeah, the SNES was our first console.
Yeah,
that was there's a funny story with this. It was actually a Christmas present to me and my little brother. But my father actually set it up the night before and played it for about 6 hours.
That sounds like your dad.
Deleted all the save files he had started, and then the next day he's like, "Hey kids, Santa Claus set up your new game system."
That is so. I've told Jackie this numerous times. It's like, and I don't know if you do this or not, but you'll buy something and you say it's for her or Kelly. And I do this all the time.
I've never done that.
I have.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Never, not once.
I have definitely done that. Like, we got that Amazon Alexa thing, and I'm like, "This is for you, so you can listen to music and tell what the weather is." She's like, "You're full of shit," and you know it. And I'm just like, "Prove it." So that's a very distinctly guy thing to do, I think. But that's just amazing, though. That I know it's like there's every guy is always a kid at heart, no matter what.
Oh yeah.
And so I just have a feeling that's what I'm gonna do with our guy. With our little guy, hopefully, like, I'll get him a present. I'll be playing with it the night before. My wife will be like, he needs to be wrapped up, put it away.
Or, you know, what Kelly did with her little brother is you get him his own controller and don't plug it in, and he
thinks he's playing.
You get years he could think he's playing before he realizes that the controls actually do something.
Yeah, because I have too many siblings to be a four-person thing.
This is what I got. I got this, so it's actually a wired controller. It has to be plugged in to play, to be active. I give Lewis this, and he will play it, and he'll just sit there and like hit the buttons, and I'm playing PlayStation or whatever it is, and he's just like, da ba 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 da ba, and he'll play it, and I'm just like, yes, you're doing a great job, and I'm like, this is phenomenal.
Or when they ask which one's me, that
one, yeah, let's just go down right there. So, and Jackie's just like, you're so cruel, and I'm like, he doesn't know any better. He's having fun while sitting here with me.
Once he's old enough to call you out on it, that's when he gets a turn.
That is very true.
He has to earn it.
And
well, I have 5 siblings, so there were too many
little hands trying to get all over.
Yes,
because you're the oldest, aren't you?
I'm the oldest. Yeah, And so the youngest always just got the non-controller and hoped they didn't notice.
Well, you know, it happens. So it's like I think I was playing, kind of did with Gabe whenever he came. It was a couple of years ago. He came down. He was playing Star Wars on your Xbox, and I was just sitting there playing. And I was sitting there like, "Can I play?" And he's just like, you could tell he was like, "I don't want to give up this because I don't know if I'm ever going to get it back." And I was just like, "Wow."
Yes, he
youngest child.
He got stuck in the corner a lot.
And I was just like, "Okay," and I just kind of like walked off alone after a little bit. I was like, "I'm fine, I'll leave you alone." But it just kind of echoes that. I never really had that with my sister because we didn't really.
There's only 2 of you.
Well, also we didn't ever have a gaming system. My mom and dad, we only ever had a PC, and we didn't really fight over it. And Jackie was never.
Was she never really into that video game?
Rachel was never really into video games ever. She was more of she was more studious, sports oriented. She kind of liked that stuff a little, or maybe a little more artsy even.
Yeah.
But she definitely did not go into the video game kind of like nerd geek culture that we ended up going into. So I didn't have a problem with that. Although I did have problems with getting kicked off with the computer several times because Dad wanted to use the telephone. But that's a whole other story.
That's a whole other
story on the 90s. But so talking about back in the day. So Zelda is Legend of Zelda. Let's be correct here. It is. To be described, so the Legend of Zelda, from its booklet, it's the whole story basically of all. This is what they came up with whenever they were developing it. It was a short prologue, title screen. Basically, a small kingdom in the land of Hyrule is engulfed by chaos when an army led by Ganon, the Prince of Darkness, invaded and stole the Triforce of Power, one part of the magical artifact which alone bestows great strength. In an attempt to prevent him from acquiring the Triforce of Wisdom, another of the 3 pieces, Princess Zelda splits it into 8 fragments and hides them in secret underground dungeons. Before eventually being kidnapped by Ganon, she commands her nursemaid Impa to find someone courageous enough to save the kingdom. While wandering the land, the old woman is surrounded by Ganon's henchmen, when a young boy named Link appears and rescues her. Upon hearing Impa's pleas, he resolves to save Zelda and sets out to reassemble the scattered fragments of the Triforce of Wisdom, with which Ganon can be defeated. So that's the basic premise of the game, and I mean, just thinking about that, that's a pretty epic like story to think about. It is epic. I mean, to think about it, it's a basis of any kind of great, fantasy
hero story,
any hero story whatsoever. You got to go collect all the artifacts, and you see this 1,000 times in all kinds of different tropes, but it's just really interesting to kind of look at it and see that this is the kind of story that they had set up and everything like that. But so during the tale, obviously Link collects. He'll go around and collect, locate the 8 underworlds or labyrinths, which are the dungeons which you go through, and you defeat the guardian monsters and revive each of the fragments. With the Triforce, with the completed Triforce of Wisdom, he's able to infiltrate the final hideout, which is Death Mountain, and he confronts Ganon and destroying him with the Silver Arrow, and obtaining the Triforce from Ganon's Triforce of Power in Ganon's ashes. Link returns and restores the Triforce of Wisdom to the rescued Princess Zelda, and peace can be returned to Hyrule. So that's kind of how the whole game culminates and everything like that. So that's kind of a trope they've really pushed in all the games, really, of any of the Zelda games, really. Yeah. So, I mean, where do you guys see that in any of the other games like you guys have played? Like, you said played the Game Boy game. Which one was that?
I think it was the Ocarina of Time.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. Is that what were you going?
That was 64 one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think they came out with that one.
Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons were the 2 Game Boy ones you would have played.
Yeah, I was thinking of Minish Cap,
well,
which is that's what
it was Game Boy Color, and I think they re-released a couple of them.
Maybe they did then.
Of them.
They might.
It was.
Ocarina of Time was the 3D 64 one.
Well, it was definitely the one that you time travel.
Okay, that was probably Oracle of Ages.
That's Oracle of Ages.
It may have been Oracle of Ages.
Yeah, I think that's that one. So what was the premise behind that one? Were you trying to go back and basically defeat again and again, or?
I didn't finish it.
That's okay.
So I don't...
Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons were kind of a different storyline. There's
I don't think Ganon was...
There's like a magical princess, and there's this evil wizard person who's trying to capture her.
Kind of a generic wizard person.
Yeah, it's like a generic wizard.
I think Vivaldi or something like there's a name, or Vivari, something
I know,
like
we're
that.
going to make people
It's a
mad
V something
with this.
or another. Someone's going to be upset with me.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But they... You're trying to set the timeline right, and the 2 games kind of intertwine with each other.
That's
the
cool.
Oracle of Ages one, the Great Deku Tree is there, and you interact with them like in different ages.
Because
they're building this dark tower, which is like the final dungeon, and you're like part of it as it's going along.
There's part of those Game Boy Color games where they come out with like 2 colors, and there's slight differences between them.
Oh
it
my
was
God!
During that age.
Yeah. So we went over this one in with the Crash Bandicoot episode we just did a while back. They did that with Spyro and Crash on the Game Boy Advance. It's like Spyro purple and Crash orange, like you said, with those 2 different colors. And I always remember thinking, I'm like, who? It's just it's a marketing ploy to get people to buy more games.
Yes.
Essentially.
Well, and in true Nintendo fashion, there was items you could only obtain by having 2 Game Boys and a link cable with both games. So you
thankfully, I had a sister
them.
with the Game Boy.
Sons of bitches. That is true. I guess that kind of makes sense that now that I've kind of looked into all this, and seen it all, I guess it makes sense why they had Pokemon Red and Blue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that wasn't even
and
the worst.
Gold and
Do you remember the Final Fantasy Crystal game?
Yes.
The one where you had to have 4 Game Boys with link cables to plug into the
and you had like a specific adapter, like they had for 4 Game Boys.
They sold for that game,
and I'm like,
it was $20 a pop, I think, for the adapter.
That's just cruel.
It was mean. I remember rounding up all the Game Boys in the neighborhood and buying cables for them so we could play it for one night.
And you're just like, your dad is probably like, sure, why not? And your mom's like, why are we gonna buy this thing? Probably.
It was terrible.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you just kind of see that there. But luckily, this is still in the age that they're really just Nintendo's trying to like get their feet a little bit. So, if you guys are unfamiliar with Nintendo, they actually started as a toy or a toy company. Actually,
I didn't know that.
they did like slot machines and toys and things like that to start off with, and then they kind of eventually evolved into the electronic entertainment company that they are, which is interesting. And obviously, I think the Famicom system was their first foray into the entertainment sector, at least electronic stuff. And to inaugurate that, that's where they came out with the, obviously, Legend of Zelda. And along with the re-release of Super Mario Bros., which was originally, I believe, it was originally released like cabinet-wise, is where it came out originally.
Yeah, arcade was on the main system.
And it came out on that, and then, but with the re-release, they were like they were talking about it, and they were just basically saying, hey, we want to try and put together a game that's something that you haven't really seen before, and which is where they come up with the idea of Legend of Zelda, which was actually created by what's that?
If you want to get right down to it, this is the first open world game.
I mean, really, yeah,
because way before its time.
Because we'll go into this a little bit more later, but you can literally play this game any way you want.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go around and literally do none of the dungeons and never...
Well, exactly. And unlike a lot of the other stuff, you're not locked into a particular dungeon order or anything. I mean, you can really just do what you want.
And that's the thing is, like, they kind of go over this a little bit more. They show that you can literally defeat the dungeon in any order you want. You don't have to get any of the weapons if you don't want them. You can. They have ways to defeat all the dungeons with only the beginning tools and without getting any power-ups and like that. So that's why it was just an amazing kind of feat that the developers created whenever they did. So it was actually originally released in 1986 by Nintendo, and you should know these names, James. Miyamoto helped do it. So if you don't know Miyamoto, he essentially is one of the godfathers of Nintendo. Nintendo, in my opinion, helped create Super Mario, Donkey Kong, so many iconic characters and icons of Nintendo that he is just indispensable. And if he ever does pass, and when he does pass, it's going to be a huge loss because he still has a huge hand in anything Nintendo does.
Yeah.
And he's still a main developer,
and which is just amazing because I know he's in his 60s now, I think, if not a little older. At least. And I just think it's amazing that a man at his age, anyone else that age could probably have stopped working by now, but he's still going to town.
He probably could stop if he wanted to.
But I don't think he does, which is great. And he can play. He can work as long as he wants. So, the other gentleman that was involved was I'm gonna butcher this name so bad. Takashi Tezukiyo. I apologize. I am an English speaker and I'm awful at doing names. These are the two gentlemen. Miyamoto and Tezukiyo are primarily seen as the creators of the franchise. And so Tezukiyo, I believe, he was involved in a couple other properties that Nintendo came up with. And I'm trying to remember, but he's primarily more of the I don't know if he's more of the engineering or the computer design portion of it, and Miyamoto is more of the artistic design end of it. So, but anyway, so like I said, they were really involved in doing other properties as well. So the big thing though is while they were developing this, they were actually done whenever they were developing the Super Mario game, Super Mario Bros. For the Famicom at the time, they were actually working on both teams. So if you can imagine doing that, like, I mean, I'm sure you guys do, working on two major projects at once.
It's hard.
I mean, that is bizarre. I couldn't think of anything doing like that.
Especially two games that turned out so well.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's unusual.
I mean, usually you get people that focus on things like Naughty Dog. They do one game for like 10 years, like The Last of Us, and it's still great, but it's one game and it took them 10 years to do it, and it was like 50 people, and you can imagine it's someone like a group of like 13 people on each team.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, I feel like this was kind of the Wild West of the console era. I mean, people don't remember this nowadays, but the Famicom was one of many systems that came out at the time.
Yes. I mean, you had the Atari, you had...
those was the ones that survived. I mean,
and I mean,
there was a lot of small-name computer systems that just died.
Yep.
And
they just couldn't hack it, and
Yeah.
they just couldn't hack it. It was
it
was a standardized, widely available system that anyone could program for.
Yep.
They knew what language it used. They knew what hardware it had.
There's so many games for it.
Yeah, it is.
And that was another.
We talked about this in a previous podcast, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that they had in there is they just had the sheer volume of titles for the SNES really helped it survive. Kind of like the Atari.
Thousands, yeah. There's thousands.
I mean, the Atari had the same thing though too, which is just amazing. So, but like you were saying too, that's one of the things that made this game stand out amongst all the other SNES games that they had. It was just it was like essentially it was the first open world game, which is an open world adventure game. Which nowadays you have. These are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
I mean, you get like things like Assassin's Creed,
Skyrim.
I mean,
they've gotten pretty popular now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and you can have them a million different ways if you want them. You can have them super detailed, all the way down to say you want to play Lynx Awakening, a Reawakening that they just released for the Switch. That is very much just a reskin. Well, that's not a reskin. They remastered the whole.
Yeah, and I really like Link's Awakening, but I feel like Link's Awakening is actually a pretty linear game.
Yeah.
When it gets down to it, it's not. You can't just go out and do what you want.
It's not as.
You have to do it in the right
free
order.
roam as this one is, but it's definitely.
I would definitely encourage people to play the remastered one. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
The music is wonderful. It's a very chill Switch.
It's a nice Saturday afternoon, in my opinion. So.
Oh yeah.
So, like, going off that, so other things that they really push in there, so a lot of the concepts they came up with, the dungeons and the outside worlds layouts, are credited as being representations of Miyamoto's memories as a child in his hometown. So apparently he did a lot of, like, exploring as a child, going out in the forest, finding little caves and things like that, and that's where you get a lot of the dungeon aspects at. So that's what he always, I guess he had thought about that as, which I was like, I mean, I've never would have thought of that, but I guess it's a logical conclusion to come to. And on top of, they were kind of fuzzy at first of like how they wanted to, what they wanted. One, they wanted to name their character, and how they wanted to really make the player connect with the character of Link, which is why they actually end up calling him Link. It's a link to the character and the player.
Yeah.
So, which is
it's figure that out. Yeah.
It seems so simple when you say it, but you're like, huh, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. But another little tidbit. So where do you guys think the name Zelda came from? I know Kelly probably knows because you're in my notes. You probably don't.
I have no idea.
You remember reading it?
No, I don't.
So it's actually, the author of The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald. His wife's name was Zelda Fitzgerald.
That is so random.
I know,
especially for a couple Japanese guys.
But that's how they are. So, like, do you remember in Super Mario? Is it 3 where you're fighting all of Bowser's kids, the Koopa kids? All their names. All the kids' names, like Lenny and all those guys, they're taken from rock stars.
Yeah.
Like, there's Lenny, I think it's like Lenny Kravitz and all this, but they're all, like, named after, like, rock stars. And I'm like, who would think of that?
That explains the aesthetic they have whenever you get to like Super Mario World once they have like some more pixels and colors to work with. Because some of them have like a serious like Ringo Starr thing going on.
Exactly. And he's actually based on one of the Kiss guys, the guys from Gene Simmons or what? Not Gene Simmons. I can't remember his name. You're gonna kill me if I ever think about it. But they have all that makeup, that star on their face. So they're really. I love how they just pull random things and it shows that they have different interests outside of say gaming and things like that. But yeah, that was kind of one of the cool things I thought about that. So actually, in some of the earlier concepts, going off that a little bit, they actually thought that they were actually going to make Link more futuristic initially. So they were going to make him more of a time travel at first, and not just not part of the actual work, which they kind of play with that a little bit. He's not much of a time travel. He is a time traveler, but it's more of like he stays within his own realm. Kind of
thing. They played with that a little bit, and I know there was some of that in some of the earlier Nintendo commercials too, where it's like you were transported into the game system type stuff.
Which I think that's
maybe they're trying to play up that concept.
I think that was more playing up the more link to the character that it's you.
Yeah, you coming from your world to theirs
to be Link.
Yeah, which I can see that, and I think that would be really interesting to do, but I think it was a little tough for them to do, especially with the limitations of the system, because it was 8-bit, still wasn't it? It was an 8-bit.
Yeah, 8-bit.
So it is definitely limited the amount of stuff that you could do with it. So, but anyways, the Japanese version of Legend of Zelda was actually released in February of '86 for the Famicom. Which anybody doesn't know, Famicom system is essentially just a red and white version of the SNES with controllers that are already
the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Did I say SNES?
Yeah.
Yes.
My bad. I meant SNES. It's the SNES system that I did it again, didn't I? I did it again.
I wasn't gonna say something the second time. I was like, I'm just gonna let it slide.
It's the NES system.
Yeah.
It's red and like gray or white or whatever. But it's actually got controllers that are directly connected to it. It's not like the ones where the American version where it was the Nintendo system.
Detachable, yeah.
They're detachable and you can put new ones in. It's a weird kind of amalgamation that I'd never really seen before. But if you can get your hands a hold of one, go right ahead. It's great. But they were actually going to release it due to the fact they had actually released the Famicom system initially already, but they were releasing it with a new disc system, which is the top loader cartridges.
Yeah.
Which apparently it was something they hadn't done before. I guess that's why they didn't release the, I guess the American or the world release of that Famicom or that NES was that it's a front loader.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what the disc system they were talking about.
Yeah, the cartridge system. Yeah.
Cartridge system. They call it a disc system, but
that's what the NES ended up using.
Yeah, which makes more sense. So, but so actually, this is where they were actually going. They were moving from. I guess couldn't really find a lot of information about if the games were already preloaded onto it.
I'm not sure. I haven't ever actually spent too much time looking at the Famicom.
So I'd have to look into that a little bit
I
more.
knew it's like what established them as a company. I know it was really historically important for the Nintendo company.
Exactly, but I know when they added that disc system on there, that's really when they started introducing the cartridge system, which was basically floppy disks inside of them with a plastic shell around the outside.
Actually, right, yeah, the Famicom disc system was essentially a floppy disk that was a proprietary shape.
Yeah.
And they called them disc cards. Which
is bizarre, yeah. That's why I was like, it was just so just insane. So, but another kind of interesting thing that they, see, this is what it looks like.
Oh, wow, that is weird.
It literally looks like
essentially like a box floppy drive, like for an old school PC. With a family computer written on top of it.
That is probably exactly what it is.
I guess one way to get your system out there, it works.
8 kilobits of RAM. That's actually a lot for the time.
I know, right? That's what I was like looking at it, and I'm like, that's for the time, that was probably one of the stronger systems out there. But I think there are really interesting facts that they put in there. So they actually had a microphone in the controllers that you could blow. But you only get this in the Japanese version, which is why they're kind of highly sought after, because whenever they came over to the NES version for like worldwide release, they didn't have that in there. So, and you would just have to like spam the button, whatever button it was, to try and make, because there's a couple bosses in there that you have to fight. And you have to the whole thing was you have to blow on them. You have to blow at the controller, and it would feel shouting at it. And it would actually make the boss die, or it would attack it.
Wow!
And for that time,
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
But you think about it, that's so Nintendo to do something
like
that.
They explored a lot of stuff. I mean, they came up with the gun system, and I think towards the end of the console, they even had a power glove thing that you could use.
Don't. I remember seeing those things and really wanting one, but my mom was like. I've watched people try to play with them. They
didn't work out very well.
They don't hold up, man. It just they don't really have well. But Nintendo is just known for really being an innovator, and just putting out weird stuff sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
It's just you wonder what was the Wii wheel, the Wii U even why would you make a tablet? But you can tell it's literally just a predecessor to the Switch. That's all it was. They're like, we wonder if people are going to like a handheld thing. So, but anyways, so like I said, they released it in '86 in Japan. It sold fairly well, but whenever they released in '88 to the U.S. market, which was was emerging market at the time, this is actually where it really hit its stride, and it sold actually 2 million copies, which is ridiculous. And that's where you actually get the release of the gold cartridges, which you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that was actually a limited release to get. And if you can actually get some of those still, and they're in good condition, that's a real collector's item. You can see some of those going for like $2,000 to $3,000 nowadays.
Yeah, the gold cartridge was super cool.
I mean, because you think about it, they're all the ones that are just gray or whatever with the little logo on it. But
Yeah.
it's a gold cartridge, and it's just like it's like telling them like this is our gold standard for games. I know, right?
Ooh.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
So you've jumped ahead a little bit. So after you've bought this, after somebody has purchased this game, they get in there and start digging around, and they really see the gameplay mechanics, like you were saying earlier. It took concepts they had from like the Atari, the old 8-bit style stuff, and they really mixed in action, adventure, and role-playing game genres all together. So you had some of these. You had role-playing games, but they were all, a lot of them at the time, they were very text-based.
Yes.
And you didn't have a lot of interaction outside of that. You would really you had to type in like, remove sword from pack.
Okay, don't make fun of Zord.
I'm not making fun of it, but it's what you had to do.
Oh, yeah.
There was definitely limitations into it playing on a system as opposed to playing in person like with D&D, because this is about the same time that, well, was it 76 or the 80s that Gygax came out with D&D 1.0?
80s, yeah.
I thought it was like late 70s.
It was late 70s?
I think it was late 70s.
But if you think about it, before that, the only really role-playing stuff you had was like D&D or any other little smaller modules, like homebrew modules that they had like that. And so to really interact with something like that and have that available for you, where you like open the pack up, pull out what item you need.
1974. You're right.
So Kelly, on the point right there. Don't screw with Kelly on D&D. No. She knows her stuff on that one. So like I said, while early in the game the player only gets armed with a small shield, I was saying earlier, you can really go through each of the dungeons or the whole world, and you can try and find different weapons to make it easier for your adventure to go.
And some of this stuff is really hidden.
It really is.
Like it's, go to a particular mountaintop and burn a particular bush with the right color candle.
Exactly.
And there's nothing to tell you anything about that. There's no in-game hints or stuff.
And the only way that some people learned some of these things was from Nintendo Power.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the gaming magazine.
Kind of their tell-all gaming magazine.
Which they really didn't... They kind of started getting pushed right about this time. But yeah, like you said, if you didn't have a subscription to that, you were kind of like swinging in the dark, really.
I mean, I remember playing the game one time and we were stuck in the Lost Woods area, which you have to travel through the woods with the correct sequence of button presses, and there's really nothing to tell you what to do.
Nope.
Oh, yeah, and if you mess it up, you start over.
Yeah, you do it right one way, you end up in the temple, like the dungeon area, and there's a different sequence of button presses you could do to get a hidden item. Now we're sitting for hours trying to figure this out because we had no idea what it was.
Well, because there's so many
Our
different
friend
combinations.
had it written down on a piece of paper from their uncle or something, and I guess it was just wrong because we couldn't make it work.
It happens, but it's just really interesting that they take some of those mechanics and they put them in with some of the newer games, even like with they really kind of like move some of those puzzle mechanics into like Breath of the Wild, like really heavy with all the little like temples that they have there. Are they called temples in there? Because I have to remember.
The shrines.
Shrines.
Yeah.
That's close. It's a little different. The temples are the animal or divine beasts that they had to go after. So, but something that they've really kind of hammered home with all the games, at the very beginning of the game, they always end up usually giving you that one weapon that you have to use. And this is where it all came, is whenever you go into, the sword gets entrusted to him by the old man. He's only called the old man. And this is the most iconic line. Like you said,
no story, no backstory, just an old man in a room.
And he says the iconic line, James,
it's dangerous to go alone, take this.
And that is just, and that has been thrown out on so many t-shirts, so many things.
There's songs about it.
Exactly.
Everything.
And it's just amazing that a whole world is spawned from that single sentence, and it's great. And the more they can do that, like they hat goes off to them. I love hearing that kind of stuff. So, but this is actually one of the first games that they actually use the side screen movement. So this is something they really pushed in. So in like Mario, it was just side scrolling and it was one level. So what they would do is they would shift and you'd have one block out of each area and you have to go back and forth and you could actually continuously go back and forth to it. So they had that a little bit in Atari, but it was just the graphics were significantly less.
Well, my understanding is that the reason they did the shifting screen system was that the console was not capable of loading more at a time.
No.
That is the absolute most the NES could handle, and that's why they had to have those transitions at the edge of every screen. I know they weren't very happy about that.
But, I mean, it's one of the limitations of the system they had at the time, and nowadays you can load, if you have the right graphics card or whatever it is, system setup, you can literally have an entire world. You could probably have the whole Breath of the Wild world loaded at once. Really felt like it.
I'm sure there's greeting cards out there that could play the NES Zelda game better than the original system.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But it's that limitation that leads to the innovation that makes it unique.
Exactly. And these artists really push it out there and make it go. So, like I said, like I was saying earlier, you can go through the world however you want. But you have to at least, if you're going to fight again, you have to at least go through all 8 of the dungeons. That was a must on it, and collect all the Triforce pieces. And each of them, as you go along, usually you pick up a weapon while you do that, and eventually end up fighting Ganon, and you end up saving Zelda, obviously. And I know for the longest time I was an idiot, and I thought that Zelda was the main character.
I think everyone has thought that at some point.
So it happens. But obviously the cool thing they did though with this is as each of the dungeons was defeated, the difficulty will increase a little bit, and it makes it a little bit harder. You take a little bit more damage from the baddies essentially, and. But that's why they give you the tools to make it easier. But I've seen guys speedrun this game, going through all.
I bet there's a ton of speedrunning.
It's stupid to watch these guys to do them because they've got it glitched out and like that, and they just whiz through it and they know every little thing about it. And that's why these games are so fun to watch.
Well, those are the people that are going to find all the secrets. They go through to try everything, touch every place, do every possible thing to every location.
And they find all those secret little hidden things that
wasn't even supposed to be there.
They weren't even supposed to be. Half the time, it's like they were probably so on a crunch that they were just like, hey, we're gonna lose this. We forgot about this, so it is what it is. So. Yeah. But anyways, so after the game came out and all this was found out, and it was just received huge amounts of praise. Obviously, at the time, it had some competition, but for the time, it sold around 6.5 million copies, and obviously, it earned lots of accolades, which, guess what? It earned an accolade of Best Game of the Year from Nintendo Power Magazine. Big surprise there. So, I know, right?
Gotta plug the company.
I had to throw that in there, which I think it's hilarious. A lot of games do that. Like, remember the Xbox Magazine? They're like, Halo is the best game of the year, and you're just like, you don't say.
Yeah.
I mean, Halo was fine, but it wasn't any Half-Life 2.
Dude, Reese will probably fight you for that one.
He would, I know.
He probably would. So, but anyway, so
we already established the PC Master Race.
That's right, always, forever. So, but the interesting thing though is that it is held up for so well for so long that in 2001, Game Informer it was actually ranked best game of all time out of 100 games that they chose, and it dropped to 13th best game in 2007 from the same editorial staff out of 100, which, I mean, still being in the top 20 games of all games
over 20 years.
86, yeah,
30 years almost.
Almost 30.
Almost 30 years. That is insane to think that a game has withheld the test of time for so long. But I mean, just impact, guys. I mean. The Zeldas have. I mean, just throw out some examples of what you think that Zelda has had on the world.
It was Legend. Wait for it.
You're done. And again, you're about this close to getting banned. This close. Just I can't permaban you, but I will.
Okay, Zelda was great.
I'll put you in the corner next time.
I mean, it's for me. I love these kind of open world puzzle dungeon games with a little bit of combat thrown in.
Yeah.
Zelda is my happy place. That's one of my favorite franchises of all time. I have bought Nintendo systems just for the Zelda game before, and I'm not ashamed of it.
That's why you got the Switch.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit that.
I mean, I did it too. I mean, because whenever, I think it was you told me you were getting it, and I was just like, ooh, I was like, that means I can have somebody to play with, and like, there'll be other games I can play with. This would be great. I can trade games with them and everything. And I think, actually, did I end up borrowing? I don't know if I borrowed Breath of the Wild from you.
No, because I bought mine online.
No, I borrowed it from a buddy at work. That's what it was. And I had it for like 8 months. Yeah.
Breath of the Wild was
and
awesome.
I maybe got 30% total all the way through. Like, I'm talking about like the whole game, like shrines, everything.
I mean, you can spend 60 or 70 hours just finishing the main storyline.
Reese, I think he won 100% of the game.
Wow.
Which is ignorant, in my opinion. That's like Binding the Isaac level of like trying to go to completion.
Yes.
Well, if you think that's crazy, you should watch some of the 100% Breath of the Wild speed runs. It's like
days.
It's like a 2 to 3 day speed run.
That's ridiculous. What do they sit there and just chug energy drinks while they're doing it?
Yeah, pretty much.
God, that's awful.
It's one of the few speed runs where you're permitted to take a break to sleep.
Well, thank you, speedrunning gods. Thank you so much. But yeah, so like you were saying, it's just the impact that it's had is just immeasurable, really.
Yeah,
But I mean, if you think about it, it's really. You look at some of the more common RPGs now. It has a lot of the mechanics that they put in the Legend of Zelda game are just commonplace now.
Would you say there's some sort of connection between the past and the present, like a link? Maybe?
You know what? Yeah, you're banned now. Yeah, you're banned now.
Yeah.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
Well, the shirt I had bought your son with the Zelda shirt.
Thank you for that, by the way.
I got that from a craft fair. And
really?
Yeah, one of the big craft fairs that they have in town.
That is cool.
And it's part of a culture if they're selling Zelda shirts at a craft fair.
The country craft fair has a homemade Zelda shirt.
And that's what I love about
these grandmas don't even know.
They don't know, but they know some kid is going to buy it.
But they've knitted this little cutie doll of these characters.
Exactly. Like, if you guys ever get bored and you want to look at just the sheer impact, go on Etsy and just type in Zelda or Link to the Past or whatever it is, Nintendo, you can just see tons of crafts and things that people have made and printed out for these people, and just from their sheer love of the game. Even if they have never played the game, they know these images and they know these characters, and they still have a love for them and what they represent. And I just love how our culture. I can say that it's our culture.
It's our culture.
It's our culture, and it has permeated popular culture at this point enough to where people can appreciate it, and they can enjoy it for how we have enjoyed it, essentially.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole point of that is culture. Once something gets to that point, I love it because you can talk to somebody about it and you can see how they feel about it. And that's kind of basically why we created this podcast in the first place, is because it's something we can make. So, but really pushing off that a little bit, the RPG mechanics and the have just really settled into what most RPGs are nowadays. And like I said, it's been, I don't know how many times they've re-released the original game. I mean, I think they really, and I know I can think of twice that I know of off the top of my head.
I know it's on the Switch. I know
they came out with it on the NES little system that they came out with a while back.
Oh, the little NES classic console thing.
Yeah, they came out with that.
On that.
Yeah.
And they've actually released it as an emulator on a couple, like whenever they came out with the Wii system, whenever they started getting the internet.
The Wii Marketplace had a bunch of games on it.
So yeah, they re-released it with So they've only re-released. They have never touched it, and they've never remastered it or remade it.
That's good. They shouldn't.
That's just showing the kind of reverence that Nintendo has for some of their stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I will love that to the day I die. They're not like some other companies that will come in and they'll just remaster something. They're like, it has to be new, it has to be brighter and shinier. They have a reverence for their IPs and their original properties just to kind of show like, hey,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We respect that. So, but yeah, so that kind of like brings me into the. Like I said, this was a little bit of a shorter episode.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
fine.
which is fine, but like I said, it kind of brings me to the end of my notes. But what are your guys' overall feelings towards the Legend of Zelda game? I know we can wax nauseum about the whole franchise, but how do you feel? I mean, are you gonna go out and play it? Are you gonna steal from James' Switch anytime soon and play it?
I mean, I've steal it every once in a while and just pick it up and play it.
Yeah, I mean that's what you can do with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind playing this again because, to be
Yeah.
honest, I have some very frustrated memories of this game as a child.
That's what I would.
Like you said, because the number of secrets there, the rumors we'd heard, I don't
Yes,
think I
being
ever.
able to look up the
I don't
parts
think
you
I
get stuck
properly
on.
finished it. I think we got through 6 or 7 dungeons at one point, and I never like properly finished the game.
Because it's not like the Link to the Past, where is there only 4 dungeons or 5 dungeons?
No, Link to the Past had more.
Really?
There was 3 dungeons to get the Master Sword, and then the Dark World had, what was it, 8 or 9 dungeons, plus the final one.
Oh my god, I didn't think there was
and
that
Castle,
many.
and Castle Hyrule, there's a bunch.
Man, that's I'm
Link to the Past is a whole nother scale. It's a big
it
Zelda
just
game.
shows that I'm gonna have to go and research on that. Hint, hint, guys. That so we can try and get into that one a little bit more. I know. James is like my
Salivating, my jam.
I know. My giblets are
I've
tingling.
watched you play that game like 4 times since we've been married.
See, that kind of just shows that it holds a place in people's hearts. But like I said, guys, if you've enjoyed these episodes, tell us how long do you want us to talk? Because like I said, we can just talk here for hours if we really want to. We're a little winded today, just because we've smashed
Did
2
one
episodes.
before, yeah.
Did one before, and it was World of Warcraft, and it was just that was a lengthy one.
Yes.
Yes.
Lengthy,
There's so much
but
to
anyways.
talk
Anyways, sorry, stop. Okay.
On that note, there's an excellent Zelda rap, Star Bomb.
yeah.
If you're of age.
Yeah, if you're 18 plus, go ahead and try it. If you're not, don't tell your parents, and you didn't hear from us. So, but anyways, guys, like I said, if you guys are enjoying what you're hearing, please comment on our website, on any reviews from any of the podcasting systems or platforms that you're using as well. If you like us, like I said, just let us know. If you don't, please still let us know. Like I said, we want to know how well we can better improve the content of our podcast for you guys and for us as well. So, beginning, guys, we will be coming out with another episode in about a week's time, hopefully. And we'll leave a little bit of a teaser on the Facebook page because I've been posting the day before on each of them, trying to let you guys kind of guess and figure out which one we're doing next. So I know it's probably not fun for some people, but I enjoy it because I'm a sadist. So anyway, guys, thanks for Kelly and James for stopping by again. I think next week we'll have maybe Jackie will come in and bother me. Probably the other way around, really, honestly. So, and thanks for coming by, guys.
Have a good night.
All right, guys, have a good one. Bye. If you're interested in keeping up to date with new episodes on our channel, add us on any of your favorite podcasting apps, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Seriously Pointless Conversations. If you have questions or concerns, please email us at seriouslypointlessconvo@gmail.com. We appreciate any feedback. Thank you for listening to our show.